Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tatler Talks. Today, we will be speaking all about collecting fine watches and why it is trending right now in partnership with Tatler Philippines and Vintage Grail. I'm senior writer for Tatler Philippines and editor of Tatler Homes. I will be your host this evening, Stephanie Zubiri. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. It is super lovely to be here. And I am sure all of you watch aficionados out there are very excited because we have a panel of guests that are so passionate about collecting watches. So I am curious as well. Why is it such a trending topic these days? And what can we learn about how to invest, how to choose? Why are we even collecting watches? And tonight we have people who can share with us their passion about the technical excellence, the sheer beauty of timepieces. I mean, these are really works of art that you can wear, but are also functional. I think that's where the beauty of a timepiece lies in. Okay, so tonight, along with a Vintage Grail, we will be having a wonderful panel of guests, and I would like to introduce these guests to you this evening. So these are all collectors and people who really love watches and really know their stuff. So we're going to get a little bit nerdy tonight, but it will be very exciting. All right, our first guest tonight, we have attorney Archie Gonzalez. Now, Archie is a lawyer by profession, and he considers himself more of a watch enthusiast rather than a collector.
Good evening, Stephanie, and good evening to everyone.
Good evening, Attorney Archie. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us tonight. Now, I'll pull you back here in a bit. I will just introduce all the other guests that we have this evening. All right, our next guest is Drew Arellano. Drew is a noted actor, TV host, and a professional traveler. Fueled by his passion for adventure, he is also an avid sportsman and a big fan of motorbikes. Hi, Drew.
How you doing, Steph?
Very
Happy to be here.
good. Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm happy to learn more about why you started collecting watches. So we'll pull you back in a little bit later. All right. Now, next we have a real estate developer and owns a company that designs and builds luxury homes. Now, she's an avid watch enthusiast. Yes, that's right. It's not just the domain of men. Tonight we have Nicole Syjuco.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Steph. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you so much for joining us, Nicole. I would really love to get your feminine perspective on collecting watches. So we'll bring you back a little bit later. All right. Last but certainly not the least, the man behind the brand, managing director and watch specialist of Vintage Grail, Paolo Martel. Hi, Paolo.
Hey, Steph, how are you? Good evening, everybody.
I am good. Good evening. So, for those of you who don't know it, Paolo and I go way back. We actually went to school together. So it's nice to see you here on all these Tatler Talks. And thanks to Vintage Grail, I have learned so much about watches and collecting timepieces. Now, let's bring up some of the guests here and see how they are doing. Okay, hi guys. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. What have you been up to? Drew, let's hear about your adventures.
Well, actually, a very current adventure is my wife was just on for the nightly news 24 horas, and this is her makeshift studio. So we were like, I'm gonna be on, but she's like, I'm actually gonna be on. Okay, so you're on, and so timing was impeccable. That's my adventure.
Perfect. Oh, how about you, Attorney Archie? What have you been doing lately?
Hi, I basically do boring lawyer stuff on weekdays, and I do some hiking and glamour photography on weekends. And of course, watches.
Fun.
Yeah.
Oh, I love to hike. I haven't hiked in a while, but I will be going on one next week. It's so great to have fresh air, right? And that feeling of climbing up a mountain, amazing. I'm sure that makes you feel like rejuvenated after all the boring lawyer stuff, as you put it. And Nicole, how have you been doing?
Hi, Steph. So, aside from doing, building houses, doing the doing all that. We've been planning our next vacation. As you know, like cases are low nowadays, so we've just been
Yes.
we're so excited to fly to a different country just to have a change of scenery. I think we all are, and I think a lot of people are also going out already and seeing their friends, families, and I feel so positive about that. It's been such a
You
long
know,
time.
I agree. I have not left the country for the past, well, since the whole thing started for the past 2 years, over 2 years. And I am looking forward to it. But unfortunately, I'm not going to plan yet. I'm going to wait till the last minute because I don't want to get my hopes up. But I have been enjoying going out and having, quality time with friends and eating in restaurants. And it's nice to see the Philippines kind of back and
For
coming back,
sure.
very joyful. Okay, so I am going to stick around with Paolo for a little bit, who's going to share with us what's happening at Vintage Grail and a couple of trends. So we'll see you guys a little bit later. All right. Paolo, so can you talk to us a little bit more about what you guys have to offer with Vintage Grail?
Well, Vintage Grail is on its fourth year, going on 5 years next year. So basically, half our business was run pre-pandemic and the half during the pandemic. And throughout this period, we've basically been able to really experience how the community has evolved in terms of watch collecting, and how the taste of collectors have changed, and the different brands. And even throughout this last 2 years, we've seen so many changes throughout a lot of the brands abroad, and this has affected the taste. And as each month goes by, the request that we get for important pieces, keeps increasing, and it's nice because not too long ago, a lot of these watches you would really never see in the Philippines, and today we have product that is available that you would see anywhere in the world is available here.
So would
And
you attribute that somehow to the pandemic? Did people's buying habits change or interests, or do you have a hypothesis on that?
But I think today people have accepted watches to be an investment class of its own.
Mm,
And being home during the pandemic, this has allowed collectors to, and even people wanting to start collections, do a lot of
true.
research. There's so much information in the internet with social media, and I guess we've acted as a bridge between what they want and us being able to deliver exactly what they're looking for. So this has been really rewarding for us, and
Yeah.
we worked with them very closely to be
Make their
able
dreams
to
come true. Their
exactly.
watch dreams come true.
Yeah,
You're their fairy watch godfather.
we try to be.
So, Paolo, you want to talk a little bit about these timepieces? Are there anyone there that we flashed that you kind of want to discuss or share? I know you talk a lot about these sort of like boutique watchmakers like FP Journe. We're seeing more and more of them, right? Like it's
Yes,
not so
yes.
much just the big names that the Rolexes and the Audemars Piguet, right? We're looking at more interesting watchmakers, right?
Yeah, so lately, over the last year, we've seen a lot of interest with Richard Mille, FP Journe, and other independent watch brands, because I guess that everybody who collects the other big brands, Patek, Audemars Piguet, Vacheron, Rolex, at a certain point, their interest progresses, right? And they want to find
Yeah,
something more interesting. And tastes change. So some people go
true.
from vintage collecting to modern and vice versa. Uh, yes. So
Yes.
this what we have on the screen is something we have right now. These two Richard Mille available in Vintage Grail. High complications, very rare. This is an FP Journe example. Very hot, very limited Patek Philippe Nautilus watches. The Nautilus, of course, has been discontinued. So this has been a very hot topic for 2021, 2022. Various variants of the Aquanaut. AP Royal Oak has always been very famous, and the AP Royal Oak is being discontinued, and it's the 50th anniversary this year. So that's
Oh,
very exciting. And we have both modern and vintage examples.
so interesting. So we'll get into talking more into detail about that later when you bring the panel back on. The only
Sure.
thing I can think of sort of comparing it to is like when you're in the world of wine, like for me, when I started learning more and more about wine, the when you start moving to luxury wine, low hanging fruit was Bordeaux, right? Because Bordeaux was, there were different classifications. The terroir is very specific, so you can really see, if you understand how it's made, the labels, like how it goes from a basic Bordeaux to these grand crus. And then as you start to explore the world of wine, you start to realize, oh, Burgundy is so sophisticated and it's quite complex, and the terroirs so it I guess it's also like that. You kind of like progress and explore, in terms of taste and complexity, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So why don't we bring back our panelists, this evening, so we can chat a little bit more with them about how they started collecting and why, right? So maybe let's talk to Attorney Archie and ask, why exactly do you think, why did you start collecting watches, or being a watch enthusiast, and why do you feel like the pandemic has kind of like heightened this um, trend?
Yeah, great question, Stephanie. Actually, for me, I got into watches because I just love the history. It's always
Mhm.
been part of pop culture. When you go to the movies, you see all of these watches of historical significance. It's like a part of human history. When the Speedmaster went on the moon and all of that, and it is something that will outlive you.
True. This
You
is
win
true.
the Patek Philippe tagline, right? And on a practical side, it's a portable asset, and
Mhm.
if you get the right pieces, you might even grow your money. And I think the pandemic really helped push interest in wristwatches because a lot of people who went on lockdown had a lot of time on their hands. So I know of a lot of people who got to watch a lot of YouTube videos about watches during the pandemic, and their interest started there.
Isn't it wonderful how having a little bit more time in our hands made us all sort of passionate and hobbyists, passionate hobbyists about certain things? I started collecting plants, not watches, over the pandemic. La plantita over the pandemic. But I totally understand the draw of, it's really an art. I mean, when you look at some of the videos about how they make some of these timepieces, the precision, everything is still really done by hand for many of these pieces, right? And it's what's so beautiful is it's actually a practical piece of jewelry, you might say, right? It's a work of art, but it also tells time. So it has a purpose. How about you, Drew? What started your desire to collect watches, fine watches?
I think it was growing up when my dad was. I guess my dad was also into watches. So you see that blingy thing, and you're like, "What is that, Papa?" And then of course it doesn't help that your older brother's like, I just passed by Mega Mall, and then I saw a Daytona. I got it. I was so surprised that it was there. It was available, and this was back in really like very early on without the ceramic bezel and everything. But so the language was already available to me. So of
Yeah.
course, me being the younger brother is like, what are you guys talking about? And of course, that was the main lingo, in the household, when we're having dinner. But yeah, I think that's how I started. Just it's the curiosity started with the family, pretty much.
That's exciting. So, what? Tell us, what was sort of like the first purchase that you made for yourself? That like maybe, yeah, this is the one that I want to start my own collection.
I used to remember when I started my business when I was 20 years old with a good friend of mine, and I remember my first purchase wasn't really for me. It was actually for my dad because I remember back in the day that my brother 8 years senior, no, my brother was like, okay, Papa, I'll buy you a watch, ganyan, and it never came, and it was like a moment for me. It was like uy, sabi ko, hey, I can probably make my dad proud if I could buy him a watch. So my first business, my first paycheck, my first business when I was 20 years old, I bought him a Tag Heuer. So that was my first, legit, substantial watch purchase, and then I gave it to my father.
Wow, I love that story, Drew. That is such a special story. I love that your first watch wasn't for yourself, and I think it's so special. And timepieces are so sentimental. As you said, Attorney Archie earlier about the cue the Patek Philippe tagline, right? You only keep it for the next generation. It is so special because it's something people wear. It's close to your skin. It's close to you. It's all the time, right? Um, what a lovely story. I like that. So let's move on to our feminine voice here. We have Nicole. I think a lot of women out there, or there's a preconceived notion it's mostly men, no, who collect watches, right? Like women have jewelry or whatever. So it's nice to see someone who's very passionate about collecting watches. Can you share with us a little bit? Like, what entices you the most when you want to purchase a watch? Is it the beauty? Is it the investment? And how did you get into it?
Okay, so ever since I was little, I've always loved dressing up. I love fashion. I love expressing myself through clothing, jewelry, and don't get me wrong, I do love jewelry. But recently, I've also started loving watches as well. So I guess the first thing that enticed me was the beauty and the appeal of the watch. Just seeing something so beautifully made, such high quality. You won't see like imperfections in watches that are from luxury brands, like I would say Rolex, Patek, and then through time, at first I thought it was the beauty, but then I realized that slowly I'm buying them for investment, especially recently with the pandemic and all. Like I've seen watches that I bought like double in price even. So that whole thing enticed me. I don't know if I should tell a story with Paolo, with a recent watch that I actually forced my husband to buy. Around December, I think November, almost forced him, I really pushed him to buy like the Patek 5711R. I just said, it looks so beautiful, it really looks so good on you. And then like a week or a few weeks after, it got discontinued. And you know how Patek watches are when they get discontinued. The price goes up really fast, and just the value almost like doubles. So a month or 2 months after, we're so thankful that we bought that watch from Vintage Grail, and we're so thankful that Paolo actually showed us the watch. It's because it doubled in price, and we didn't even know it was getting discontinued. I would say it was luck, but also because it was a Nautilus, so I guess the value really held. So yeah, so recently it's been about beauty and investment for sure.
Fantastic. I love it. I think it's so interesting. Again, like art, right? Something that you can appreciate, but also appreciates. And you do have a keen eye. I noticed that you have a B&B Italia series of chair by Gaetano Pesce behind. I'm like, I know that chair. So you're definitely someone who likes to collect fine things. So I can see that. This Let's talk a little bit more, Paolo, about collecting watches as an investment, because it's something that not a lot of people understand. What is the market like at the moment? And if I was gonna invest a little money, what should I start in, and what's a good investment, I would say?
I think for anybody starting, you would have to focus on the brands that have been established, that have been there for a very long time, that are resilient to trends, that have stood the test of time. And these are basically four brands. It actually three brands: Patek, Rolex, and AP. And lately, Vacheron has also been very popular. And there are pieces for every budget. The key is to do your research. And I always advise our clients that you have to buy what you like. The investment factor can come in second, and um, that can be basically address through research, but there is always something for someone's taste. And recently, especially over the last 2 years, the pandemic has made watch prices explode globally. And the main reason for this is supply and demand. There's a lot of demand which the manufacturers cannot meet. So wait lists for various brands have increased and range anywhere between 1 to, for someone, 7 years. So based on that, there's a lot of choices out there, and we're here to help. So that's the wonderful thing with watches. You can wear them, you can enjoy them. As Attorney Archie said, you can move them easily, but you will never lose money if you select the right timepiece. That's something I believe in.
Expound that's really interesting. I really want to expound on that a little bit more, no, and maybe get Attorney Archie's input. As we all know right now, the stock market is kind of crazy, and oh, heaven forbid I even try my hand at that. I'm the type of person that will hide everything under my bed. But and also like real estate, which we used to think was a solid investment, is also, during the pandemic has proven to be kind of like in the slump. So what about watches? Like if we compare apples to oranges, how do you think in terms of investment, how have they performed?
Yeah, that's a very timely question, Stephanie. For me, before anything else, the basics should come first. Before getting a nice watch, you should have a house, some money in the bank, diversified stock portfolio even, and then you can add wristwatches into the mix. That said, there is this well-established online retailer in the U.S., and they looked at 10 years of data, and they showed that over the past 10 years, long-term investments in Rolex actually did better than gold, real estate, and even the Dow Jones Industrial Average. And there was also this report by the Financial Times. They said that there was this 40% surge in Chinese imports of Swiss watches last year. And they're saying that the extra money, instead of people putting it in real estate, they were buying watches. So certain watches compare favorably, but don't put all of your money in watches, and you have to know what to buy, because not all watches appreciate.
That's interesting also to think about it, because when you're looking at real estate, when you're looking at big investments in real estate, that's a lot of funds, right? Like it's a big chunk of your savings if you're going to look at quality, solid investment in real estate. But maybe a good watch is a little bit more low-hanging fruit in terms of investment if you find the right one, which is why I think it's great that you have someone like Paolo and Vintage Grail that can help you kind of navigate the process. I do like though the idea of purchasing something that you love. I'm all about that. And thank you for your sound advice. Cover the basics muna. Right? So okay, how about Nicole? Do you follow trends when you collect watches?
Definitely, I do now. I would say before I thought that I wasn't really following trends. I thought, wow, I just have such good taste. But then I realized that I actually was following trends. Like I would see, influencers and celebrities wearing certain watches that are very appealing to me. And then that's actually what started my interest in that certain watch. For example, I thought like at first I didn't really buy watches for investment and then or for the trend, but then I realized like those choices I've made, those are actually choices I've seen online, choices I've seen on Instagram. You know how there are so many pages on Instagram talking about like, watch analytics and all that. And then I've seen those, and then that's actually what influenced me to choose or pick a certain watch that I've bought recently.
So that's really interesting, because I guess also the popularity of a watch and the scarcity of demand also plays into the investment factor, right? It also plays into the value of the watch. It plays into the desirability of a watch. Paolo, maybe we can bring you back here as an expert and talk a little bit more, flesh out this idea of watches as an investment. No, maybe you have some numbers to share
Sure.
with us. Yeah.
So I've chosen three models, for our audience, and to give you specific examples of what these watches were selling at in April 2021, and
Okay.
exactly 12 months later, what are they doing today?
How
So
exciting. I
remember,
want to see
so
this.
remember
Okay.
earlier in our chat, I told you the AP Royal Oak was
Mm-hmm.
discontinued this year, right? So the 15202 ST in April 21 was 3.5 million pesos.
Okay.
Today, the same exact watch sells anywhere between 7.5 to 8 million, and there's no stock available.
Stop.
Okay. The second,
Wow, that's crazy.
then we move on to the Nautilus. The Nautilus was officially discontinued last year, probably one of the most iconic and hottest models of watches, period. So the 5711 all steel with the blue dial in April last year was selling for 5 million. Today it sells for 12.5 to 13 million.
Wow.
Now you can go back to me and you can tell me, oh, you're only choosing the expensive models. Let's look at some of the entry-level Rolex watches, right? So a Submariner, which is everybody loves a Submariner Rolex. No date in April of 2021 was selling at 650,000, and today that sells for around 900,000. So just looking at these three examples, it's unbelievable, really. Sometimes I myself can't believe.
It is pretty incredulous, okay? Like I'm quite familiar with the property market. And when you're looking at, for example, a property worth, let's say a studio worth 3 million pesos, I mean, the value of that, especially now, these small studios during the pandemic, I mean, it's actually gone down rather than gone up, or more or less stays the same. And if you're not renting it out, then you have no ROI, right? And now the renters market is kind of slowly picking up, but still fragile. So when you think about it, if you've got that 3M in terms of investment, that is like in how many years? 1 to 2 years? That's like 100% return on your investment. That's crazy. Maybe I should start calling you for investment.
No,
Diversified. I won't even wear it. I'll just keep it. No.
But again, this is unprecedented. The prices could correct, but I think overall, if you look at a 5-10 year horizon, then it
It's
can
still
only
in
go
that
up.
trend.
And this has allowed a lot of our clients to actually buy watches, keep it, enjoy it for a year or two, eventually sell it, and realize that gain, and it allows them to upgrade to a timepiece that they thought they could never buy, but now they're able to reach these pieces because of the gain, right?
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
how
it's
you upgrade the
interesting,
collection, whether
actually.
it's art, wine, or timepieces.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, look, I think it's very important to have experts that can help you navigate this field. Drew, do you want to add anything to this discussion? Have you had any experiences with watches like that, or are you more the type I collect what I want to wear and I want to keep it forever?
I think I started with finding watches that speak to me. Those are one of the, I guess, primary criteria back in the day. I remember my first Rolex purchase was back in 2007 in Hong Kong, and I was like, you know what? It's so funny because I was with my dad, I was with my brother, and I was like, should I buy this tag or should I buy this more costly GMT2? Uh, and then my brother's like, go for the GMT2, bro. So anyway, of course, I got the GMT2, and then of course, after a few years, you're like, thank you, Kuya. Thank you for for telling me to make the right decision. But yeah, usually it was because it how it looked, and of course your peers, your siblings, they really huge influence on your purchase. But now, parang ano lalo na now, parang people are woke. And I'm not sure that's always a good thing all the time, because people are now buying watches as an investment. And because of that, marami na ring resellers.
I see.
And you know what I mean? I mean, I'm just really trying to have trying to insert my experience as well. And sometimes they take advantage. Lalo na, of course, it's so funny. Besides vintage Grail, who naman, Pao, I've been a fan of. I constantly try to check out watches from FB Marketplace. I know it's quite dangerous, but of course, No, but
I bought my
I've
dog
had,
on FB Marketplace. It was alive and
I've
okay,
had,
but I mean that's my
yeah,
puppy, no? I don't know if
no,
I'd buy
but
a
no, no,
watch on
I've
FB
had, no,
Marketplace.
hey, correct me if I've had great deals.
No, there
I've
are good
checked
deals.
everything, very good deals. Sometimes kasi they're direct sellers also. I mean, cut the long story short, the watch industry now is pretty crazy. So you've got, resellers left and right, probably newbie resellers, and maybe we can get, I know, but there's nothing also like, getting your watches from Vintage Grail because okay, you don't have to check authenticity and everything.
Yes.
And I've had my great, good share of great experience from Vintage Grail from Sila Paolo.
Fantastic. I mean, I wouldn't even know where to begin. So I would basically trust somebody like Paolo and them about what to buy, what
Mm,
to, where to steer yourself at. Here's a question. Um, Obviously when you wear a watch or wear a timepiece, I mean there are natural scratches, it gets banged up, and this is a question for me, I'm curious, like what does that do to its value, for example, I mean especially some of the vintage pieces also, right? So what is like a decent amount of wear and tear, or should they just be immaculate, like Paolo, maybe you can
Yeah,
answer.
I think when you buy a new watch and somebody wants to resell it, the condition really matters, right? So
Mm,
the
mm,
least amount of scratches, the least amount of dents, and the more mint it is, the more value it will get.
yeah.
The key is basically not to polish it or touch it too much because when you do,
Okay.
you devalue the piece. But you also see some people who are so scared. They buy these beautiful, expensive watches, but they
They
never wear
don't
them.
wear it.
They
That
just
would
keep
be
them in the
me.
case.
Oh my god, I would just keep it na lang in my house. I'll wear it in my room. I'll put on a nice
Yeah,
outfit
but
and
for me,
just stay at
that
home. I'd be
totally doesn't
scared.
make sense, and it's a total injustice. So I think you just have to wear it like a human being. I mean, don't smash it in the wall, but use it, enjoy it, and you will have normal wear and tear marks and live with it, right? And
I keep
sometimes,
on telling I keep on telling my friend because my friend just started a few years ago, and of course he made a huge investment, and he's like, I'm not gonna wear this. I'm like, dude, you bought this in order to wear it. You have to enjoy it because tomorrow, who knows? It's like you buy your favorite shirt. You have to wear your favorite shirt. You shouldn't
This is
wait
true.
for a special occasion. So I keep on telling them like during the pandemic, I rotate the watches so that even though I'm at home, diba? Of course, most of them are automatic, so kahit pa paano you're kind of helping it also at the same time.
you can
But
even
yeah, I
wear them
mean
in
for
bed.
yeah,
Good.
well, not well, my kids are like nako, lalo na they might be too entertained. So, but yeah, I mean during the pandemic, I had to use the watches, and I guess for the viewers out there, I mean for me lang, I'm okay with the scratches. It tells the story, eh. Diba? It really tells the story. It's different for resellers. It's really different
I
for resellers,
guess.
I guess.
Yeah, I
But for
guess. I
me,
think it's
for the primary reason for you buying a watch is because you want to enjoy it. And if ever nga, just eventually you want to sell, it's okay. At least you enjoy the watch.
Yeah.
true. I mean, for as long as you make some kind of profit or no loss, then it's okay, right? It's same. It's better than buying a car. Your car devaluates. That's why
Watches
I
pay you
don't sell
to
my
wear
car.
them.
My car is a jalopy because I just keep repairing it na lang because it has no more value. So very interesting. I really like this, and I just want to let you guys know I want to save some time for the Q&A because even though this discussion is really interesting, so we're gonna have like one or two last questions. But the people on this Facebook Live are really, really into it. So we've got a couple of watch aficionados out there, and the discussion on the comment section is pretty interesting. Now, lastly, maybe how about would any one of you want to recommend what is a perfect entry level timepiece? Paolo?
Hmm. That's a very difficult question, right? So I think a nice Oyster Perpetual. I have to be very careful how I answer this because you see, when you talk Patek Philippe, for example, for men today, entry level is 5 million. But I think there are a lot of watches you can find that are in the 500 to a million peso range that are quite nice. You have vintage examples from Rolex. You have Oyster Perpetuals from Rolex as well. And you can find pre-owned examples. That's one way to start, right? If, in case you can't buy the new example, you can buy something that's maybe 5 or 10 years old but in great condition.
How about Drew? Any suggestions, or Archie?
Yeah, but a couple of, I guess a couple of years ago, I would always say, because I was such a big fan of IWC and Panerai, because before my dad passed away, he gave me a Rajamir. But sadly, the value it's not that well nowadays. Before I'd say, hey, entry level watch. I'm such a big fan of, I still have the Big Pilot or the 3717. But right now, it's like what Pao said. I'm gonna stick to an OP. I'm gonna stick to an Oyster Perpetual, probably an entry level of Rolex. I think stick to Rolex. Yeah, around 500K. And what's great about the brand, it's not gonna depreciate.
Yeah.
It won't.
The other brands, you'll find beautiful examples that are 4, 5, 600,000. But unfortunately, when you sell that, there is a depreciation element that you need to deal with. That's why I'm suggesting brands that at the very least, you can exit without losing money. Then you don't feel bad at all, right? At the very least, you get your money back.
Yeah, for as long as you get your money back, then it feels like it's not a loss. You got to enjoy something.
You're like
you
renting the
sell it.
watch, basically.
Exactly. That's true. That's great. I actually had a friend who did that, who would, buy luxury brands, luxury goods, watches in particular, or jewelry, and then would just wear them for a year and then sell them, then get a new one. And then, so I think that's a great suggestion. Okay, guys, I'm going to move to the comments because this is a really hot comment section right now. We've got tons. All these people here are very much into watches. So good evening to everybody out there. Thank you for joining us tonight. So we're going to get here to some of the Q&A we have here. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to read out some comments here. Francis Luceo, agree about the investment last 2020. My wife and I were choosing between a real estate lot and a Patek. We chose real estate. After 1 year, the lot appreciated by 10, 20. Okay, and then
is that 10 to 20 million? I hope it's not 10 to 20
percent,
million.
I guess. Percent. Aside, here we go. Christy, what's Nicole's fave timepieces at the moment, and what kind does she suggest that's versatile and timeless?
I would say I'm very biased right now with Patek because it's my favorite brand at the moment. If it's for ladies, I would suggest the 7118 Patek Nautilus, or even the Aquanaut for the ladies. I could also suggest maybe a Rolex Day Date. If you want an all gold solid watch, a Day Date is a good timepiece for that. AP Royal Oak is also a very good suggestion. My first watch was actually a Cartier tank, and then I realized it was harder for me to sell that. That's why if you want to go safe, I would go like Rolex or Patek, and AP of course. But at the moment, I'm a big Nautilus fan, so 7118 for sure.
It's interesting, right? Because I know a lot of people who purchase watches from jewelry brands, and although they are very beautiful timepieces, and very wearable and very luxurious, some of them are really bejeweled. They're not necessarily resaleable in terms of investment. Can we expound on that? I'm quite curious. Why is that? Without naming names, so we don't bring them down. They're all beautiful in their own right. But just out of curiosity, serious watch aficionados are not really collecting these jewelry watches. I see Archie nodding. Any thoughts on that?
I think there's a part of the community that looks down on fashion brands and jewelry watches made by jewelers, basically. So for that part of the community, they feel that it has to be a Swiss watch manufacturer, and not something
see.
that caters to jewels.
I see. So it's more about the craftsmanship and the sort of tradition and watchmaking behind it. That parang that's not there. It's not. It's all about the timepiece behind it, right?
If I can just add to that comment, Stephanie, let's look at a house like Cartier, right? They make beautiful jewelry, very well designed watches, but they have a whole segment of Cartier watches called the Privé collection or vintage Cartier. And today, this is a collector's gem. And yes, you have some examples that are in the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, but you also have some that you can buy for 250,000, 300, 500,000, and they're beautiful examples. Right, that Cartier is one example. The other example is Harry Winston on the top end, right? Harry Winston partnered with a few independent watchmakers, and they had great examples over the last few years. Bulgari is another example where they have beautiful design watches, right?
The Serpentine. I mean, super classic, right?
And then you even had those rubber Bulgaris that were aluminum 10, 15 years ago.
Oh, that's right.
They're all very special. So I think there's room for those brands as well in collecting per se.
Interesting. Okay, here's an interesting question. Oh, okay, here we go. Aside from Rolex and AP, which brand would you prefer, Tudor or Panerai? Okay, I see Drew. Maybe this is a question for Drew. He's nodding his head.
No. I'm a fan of a lot of watch brands, really. In terms of aesthetics, of course, I grew up with Panerai because of my dad, and my first titanium chrono watch was a Panerai Daylight years ago. I don't know though. Right now, if ever sabihin na natin you don't have a budget to buy a Rolex, I'd go for Tudor. I mean, design wise, ang galing eh,
How about Omega? Parang Omega has really nice watches as well, or IWC.
Absolutely.
Any thoughts on those? In terms of we're looking at entry level, someone who loves watches, wants to start.
Well, that's a different question, Steph. I think in terms of ako kasi for me, you gotta buy a watch that you've been salivating for. You know that in your web browser, you kept on researching for this type of watch. And I keep on telling my friend, if, he's like, okay, I'll just buy this na lang, which is probably, cheaper. Sabi ko, you know what? Save up na lang and then buy the watch that you want and you will not regret it. So, yes, aesthetics, come in as a very important factor. But I really recommend you getting the watch that you want. Just save it up. Save up na lang.
That makes sense, instead of like settling, just wait na lang a little bit more, diba? And getting something with, I guess, like investment value as well. All right. There's an interesting comment here from Lorene NM. Just curious, would you consider buying from other watch brands such as Wilhelm? I meant it does offer clients details that you'd expect from high-end watches, carbon mid cases, and ceramic bezels with different polishing finishes. I'm not familiar with this brand. Are you guys familiar with this? Are there other like these? Are these one of the sort of like more unique brands? Paolo, maybe?
I think there's nothing wrong with considering buying from other watch brands, right? Because it really depends on what you can afford at the moment. We all want Rolls Royces, but if we can't afford it, then we look for other beautiful alternatives. So that's my advice to everybody that communicates with us in Vintage Grail is, keep, as long as you like it, and go for it. Absolutely. Because there are a lot of very well priced brands out there that are well made.
There's also a lot of people collecting like unique watches. Like there are lots of Seiko fanatics out there as well.
It's a great brand.
Right?
Grand Seiko or even Seiko. You have
Yeah.
Credor, which is the higher end version of Seiko that they sell in Japan. These are very well made and huge following worldwide.
Yeah. Um,
Stephanie,
okay.
just to add on that point, no,
Sure.
yeah, I know a lot of people just look at the brands, but they'll be missing out, no, if they limit their choices to just the mainstream brands.
I like this question. For an average Filipino big brands, entry level Submariner like Napawis are really out of reach. What are your thoughts on buying fashion brands, micro brands, vintage Seiko? Any suggestions for Filipinos who are not aficionados or collectors, but are interested? Anyone want
Yeah,
to take?
for me, you should get something you like. That's first,
Mhm.
something you like. Number two, that will fit your wrist, and number three, that will fit your lifestyle. No? So if you have all of these three, the investment potential is secondary, and it's just a bonus.
True.
If it appreciates down the road. Now, there's nothing wrong with fashion brands so long as the fashion brand does not is not overpriced. There are fashion brands that you get, it's like a bang for the buck kind of piece.
Mhm.
But there are fashion. You should also be wary, of fashion brands that charge too much, and for the same price, you can get a much nicer mechanical brand from a well-established brand. Micro brands, nothing wrong with that. I have some micro brands myself. Vintage Seikos are fine. Just buy the seller. As with all pre-owned watches, don't get the cheapest in the market. Buy the seller. Find someone who's reputable. We have a big community, so you can ask around and you can do your research and save yourself from the headache.
Ako
Okay,
naman, it's not really a micro brand, but it's a known brand, but it's very, very affordable. Ever since before, one of my major criteria was like if the watch talks to you, and apparently these smartwatches literally talks to you already. So, like Apple Watches, you've got your wearables. So, I mean, if it's functional that you're looking for, then, diba?
Tag Heuer is also a great brand.
Right.
I mean, in terms of like you that's the first watch you bought your dad. It's actually the first watch I got from my dad as well when I got to high school. So like Tag Heuer is a really great watch, quite affordable price points. And in terms of functionality, especially if you're more sporty, I mean, they are dive watches, right? I mean, they are sportsman's watches. It's a good watch. How about this? I think maybe okay, here we go. If you can keep one watch from your collection, which one will it be and why? Anyone want to take this? But
You should ask
it's
Archie.
asking them to choose their baby. Like, which baby will they give or sell?
That's a very hard
Nicole,
decision.
maybe Nicole. One watch from your collection. Which one will it be and why?
Can it be from my husband's collection? I think his is more valuable. He has the one, he has the better collection. So I would want to get from his collection for sure. I just don't know how he'd feel about it. But if I were to choose from my collection, I mean, I wouldn't say I have a huge collection. I would say it's just, a decent amount. I would say, can I choose two?
Go ahead, please.
I would probably go for my Rolex Day Date just because it's just so classic. I've seen vintage Rolex Day Dates out there and they still look so good, like 20 years old, 30 years old, and they look exactly the same. I feel that it's such a classic watch, especially the president, yeah, the president style, and probably a Patek. Yes, I keep saying that, but it's really my favorite right now. The
Okay.
7118. Yes.
How about you, Attorney Archie? One watch from your collection, what would it be?
For me, I'm wearing it now. This is my favorite watch from my entire collection. This is a Jijidiku Reverso Dual Face. It's in rose gold. I have had this for quite a while now, and for me, I'm really just a fan of JLC.
Yeah,
It's called the
me too,
Watchmaker's
actually.
Watchmaker. Way back in the day,
Yeah.
they made movements for Patek, AP, and Vacheron. And for that, I just really love the brand. I love the movements. I love the history, and I love how it suits my lifestyle now.
Yeah, great. I do like JLC as well. Very nice watches that they have. Here's anyone else want to share what they would keep? Drew making a face there. He still kept
No,
this.
no, I'll always go for, I guess, what matters to me the most. Watches
Yeah,
that, that were given to me, handed down to me by by my dad. So pretty much, yeah, those watches. Some Most of them, not really valuable in terms of, price nowadays, but very, very valuable to me.
definitely. I would do the same as well. I don't have a big watch collection at all. But I do have something special that I hardly wear, but you're, you guys are, they don't even, it doesn't even work, but it's something that came from my grandmother and I need to get the mechanism fixed. But a really beautiful vintage, like from the 50s, the ladies sort of like jewelry bracelets made by Rolex with a very, very small face. Very pretty. I would never part with it. It's very special from my Lola. How about you, Paolo?
I thought
One
I'd
watch.
escape this question. If I had one watch, I'm actually wearing it now. This is a
Oh,
5712
show
Tiffany.
us, because
It's
someone
a
said wrist check, please, panel.
so
So
this one
we'll start with
I
you.
love this watch because it's a Nautilus, but it's co-signed with Tiffany and Co.
Hmm.
It
Wow.
was a gift. It was like my 35th gift from my father. So you have the sentimental aspect also, and we didn't overpay for the watch because we got it straight from the boutique, so that makes it even more special. And I really love the configuration of the dial. So if I had one to choose, this would be the one.
Okay, I like that. The mix of both of a unique timepiece and also the sentiment. Okay, this is an interesting question. What are your thoughts on customized watches, sort of aftermarket diamonds, engraving, etc.? Does it devalue? Does it add value? What do you guys think about this? Paolo, maybe would be
Yeah.
best to
So I
answer.
think there's absolutely nothing wrong with engraving a watch. If you look at auctions, for example, you'll see a lot of examples of watches that are 50, 60, 70-year old, and they have these engravings and they add to the whole mystique and story of the watch. And in fact, it even establishes provenance, right? So nothing wrong with the engraving. Now, on the aftermarket diamonds, many people, many people will think that if you do that, you basically ruin the watch, but I disagree. I think that if you love the way it looks, for example, let's
Mm.
take a Rolex Daytona Rainbow. To buy
Hmm.
this watch today in the open market will cost you around 30 to 35 million. But you could get the same example for probably like 20% of the cost with aftermarket for about $100,000. You could get one with aftermarket diamonds. It's not the original thing, but you achieve
Mm,
the look, right? And if
yeah.
you like it, who cares what others think? Go for it.
This is true. I think at the end of the day, it's with any item that you purchase, no, any luxury item. We're not talking here about your house, your food, your whatever. Any luxury product, you have to like it first, right? It has to be number one. You have to love the piece. So at the end of the day, you're not trading these watches. You have to love it. Okay, I think maybe we have some time for a couple of other questions. Let's see. Okay, here we go. What will be the difference if I'm going to buy from a reseller versus vintage Grail? So
Self-serving.
maybe, yeah. So maybe, Paolo, you can, give your official answer, then we can get from everybody else, what their experiences were. I know Drew kind of answered this also earlier, but yeah,
Well, basically,
Paolo.
every piece that enters our network, we screen where it came from. I mean, even if it's new, we do our checks mechanically
Yeah.
and physically. We have a warranty. We're at the peninsula. We're not going to run away. We believe in
Mhm.
long-term relationships. All our clients have been with us from the beginning, and it's our job to please people, right? And you're investing a lot of money to buy these beautiful timepieces. You have to have the confidence and the trust to ensure that the source is reliable.
Mhm.
That's why they always say buy the seller. Now, yes, you
Buy the
might go to I don't know, Facebook Marketplace or wherever and save 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100,000. But is it worth the peace of mind if something goes wrong?
True. True. Yeah, I mean, then what happens, right? Like, where do you go? Where how do you get it repaired and all of that? So this is true. Have you guys had any experience or thoughts about this? Maybe a attorney would like to take this.
Yeah, I've always done my homework, when I would buy something. So I've never been that adventurous, in purchasing. So like I would message Paolo or his staff at Vintage Grail if I need anything, and they'll have it delivered at my doorstep in like less than a month's time. So no issues there.
That's great. I mean, imagine if I could do that with all aspects of my life. I'll just find it on the internet and then like call somebody, hey, can you find this for me? And it would come to my doorstep. How amazing is that? I just want to shout out here to Tita Duday Tuason, who's here watching. Hi, Tita Duday. She is a super fan. She says, Vintage Grail is the best. Huge fan here. We are also huge fans of you, Tita Duday. You're always our best Zoom guest whenever you come on these Tatler Talks. Okay, thank you guys so much. Maybe we'll just do one quick round among everybody. Last thoughts, parting words, what you want to share with our audience about collecting watches. Let's start with Nicole.
Right. So I guess with choosing your first watch or choosing watch of any kind, I would really suggest, going with the watch that really speaks to you, the watch that you really want. But don't just get it for investment or just because it's popular or just because of the trend. Get it because you really, really want it. And if you're not sure and if you need help, the good thing about Vintage Grail is that their staff is there and they're there to like really answer all your questions. So if you do need help, all you have to do is contact them, right? And they're very easy to reach. I always just message Jopet or Paolo about certain trends if I have questions, and it's a lot easier to deal with them, I would say. And also just service wise, it's different. It's like you're really talking to people that know their craft, people that have been researching about watches, and they're very knowledgeable with that. So if you have any questions, just message them so you can get your watch collection started.
Fantastic. Okay. Drew, any last thoughts, words, advice?
You know what? We've been mentioning Vintage Grail numerous times, so I'm guessing I'm gonna be expecting a huge discount, pal. I'm gonna be, I mean, but
Always.
I hope you guys are gonna be open to trade-ins. Like I can offer one of my children for a
Sure.
5711 maybe, but no. I don't really have any serious closing statement, but well, it's for me, watches is it's a huge thing that I guess it's not really owning it, but the memories that come with it is very, they're very special to me, each and every watch, and I hope you guys have that special relationship with your watches too.
Okay, I like that. Always the sentimental, wonderful words. Attorney Archie?
Yeah, for me, last piece of advice: buy what you like, buy something that fits you. If you can, try to explore the iconic mainstream brands because they've been in fashion and they've been relevant for decades, and they'll continue to be relevant in the coming decades.
Fantastic. And of course, last but certainly not the least, everyone is calling you the enabler on our chat here. Paolo, apparently texting everybody all the cool things that they want to buy. Paolo, last words before we wrap up this
Yeah.
really wonderful discussion.
I think that watch collecting shouldn't be intimidating. I think there's always that piece for anybody, but just you have to do your research. Of course, we're here to help, but even without us, there's so much information in the internet, and it's all available. So you just have to, do your research and and buy carefully. And I think watch collecting is a fantastic journey. And we're here. We're here for all of you. I'd like to also thank all the panelists for joining us tonight. Even I learned a lot from listening to all of you. And of course, thank you, Stephanie and Tatler Philippines.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for joining us this evening. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Archie. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Nicole. And of course, thank you, Paolo. And thank you to all of our guests who watch us on this live. And you guys were so chatty. It is amazing. So before we end tonight's discussion, I would like to show you guys where you can find Vintage Grail and how you can contact them. Okay, so for more information, contact us at info at vintagegrail.com or 639-17159-1211 or visit www.vintagegrail.com. They actually have their store at the peninsula here in Makati, so you can go and visit them. So thank you again. Thank you guys. Have a great evening. Before we go, let's flash your watches. Someone asked, what's on your wrist now? So let's see. Voila. I like the tan. Drew has a tan. Okay, we've got the JLC and then Nicole. I have not. I have all kinds of beads and anting. All right. No raffle now from VG. Maybe next time. Next time. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. This is a really wonderful discussion. I learned so much from all of you, and it really makes me want to look into this even further. So, good night, guys.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night,
everyone.
Good night.
Bye. Good night.
And to everybody out there, have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for joining this Tatler Talks. Tatler Philippines and Vintage Grail would like to say thank you. I am your host, Stephanie Zubiri, and have a good night.